The room went silent the second I unlocked my phone. Not the awkward kind of silence where someone drops a fork or forgets what they were saying, but the kind where every breath suddenly feels loud and you can sense something irreversible is about to happen. Emily's fork froze halfway to her mouth. Her brother Noah stopped smiling. And Madison, Noah's new girlfriend, the one who had spent the last half hour treating me like a punchline, went pale. My father-in-law, Charles Whitmore, leaned forward in his chair, squinting at my screen like he didn't quite believe what he was seeing. That was the moment I realized something important. This dinner wasn't going to end the way it always had. My name is Daniel Reed. I'm 37 years old. And until that Sunday evening, I thought I understood exactly where I stood in my wife's family. I was the outsider, the tolerated one, the guy who married in but never quite belonged. Emily and I had been together for 9 years, married for 6. I loved her deeply, still do if I'm being honest, but loving someone doesn't always mean they'll protect you when it matters. Her family, the Whitmores, were old-money suburban royalty, the kind of people who didn't talk about wealth directly because they never had to. It was implied in the gated driveway, the polished silverware, the casual way they discussed investments over dessert. They lived in a massive colonial-style home in northern New Jersey, tucked into a neighborhood where every lawn looked like it had a landscaping team on retainer. I came from a completely different world. I grew up in a blue-collar town outside Scranton, Pennsylvania. My dad spent 35 years fixing HVAC systems. My mom worked the front desk at a medical clinic. Honest work, long hours, zero shortcuts. Nothing about my childhood embarrassed me, but it did make me invisible to the Whitmores. They smiled at me, they were polite, but every compliment came wrapped in surprise, like they never expected me to amount to much in the first place. I owned a business, built it from scratch, ran a data analytics firm that helped mid-sized companies streamline operations. We weren't flashy, we were profitable. But to the Whitmores, that didn't matter, because I didn't come from the right place. That Sunday dinner started the way all Whitmore dinners did. Emily and I arrived exactly at 6. Charles insisted on punctuality. It was one of his many standards. The house smelled like rosemary and butter. Classical music played softly through built-in speakers. The table was already set like a magazine spread. Noah was there, lounging confidently in his chair, scrolling on his phone. He was Emily's younger brother, 30 years old, worked at his father's real estate firm, had never once worried about rent, groceries, or health insurance. And this time, he wasn't alone. "Daniel, Emily," her mother Margaret said warmly, "you made it." Then she turned toward the woman sitting beside Noah. "This must be Madison." Madison stood to greet us, smiling brightly. She was tall, stylish, perfectly put together in a way that suggested money wasn't something she ever thought about, it was just there. Straight blonde hair, minimal jewelry, confidence that bordered on entitlement. "Nice to finally meet you," she said, shaking my hand lightly. Her grip was limp, her smile didn't reach her eyes. "Likewise," I said. She looked me up and down in a way that was quick, but deliberate, like she was already forming an opinion. Dinner began smoothly enough. Charles talked about a commercial property deal he was closing. Margaret discussed a fundraiser she was helping organize. Noah bragged about a recent vacation he'd taken, something about sailing off the coast of Italy. Emily talked about her interior design clients. No one asked me anything. That wasn't new. Then Madison tilted her head toward me. "So Daniel," she said, slicing into her steak, "Emily mentioned you run some kind of tech company." The word "some" landed heavier than it should have. "I do," I replied calmly. "We focus on operational analytics." She nodded slowly, "So like spreadsheets?" Noah laughed. Emily glanced at me apologetically, then back at her plate. It's a bit more than that, I said. We build predictive models, optimize workflows, help companies reduce waste. Madison smiled thinly. Interesting, she said. I guess every industry needs support roles. Support roles. I felt the familiar tightening in my chest, the same feeling I'd had at dozens of dinners before. I said nothing. That was my first mistake. Madison took my silence as permission. So where are you from originally? She asked. Pennsylvania, I said. Oh, she raised her eyebrows. Not exactly a hotspot. It was home, I replied. She sipped her wine. That must have been humbling. Noah chuckled again. Emily still didn't say a word. I mean, Madison continued sweetly, it's impressive you made it out. A lot of people never do. The table grew quieter. Charles didn't intervene. Margaret smiled politely. I took a slow breath. Pennsylvania gave me everything I needed, I said. Work ethic, perspective. Madison nodded. Of course, someone has to do the hard jobs, right? There it was. That subtle cruelty disguised as praise. The comments kept coming. Little ones. Sharp ones. Each delivered with a smile. She asked about my parents. When I told her what they did for a living, she tilted her head sympathetically. That's so honest, she said. Real work. Noah laughed louder this time. You're being dramatic, Charles said when I finally spoke up. Madison's just curious. Emily reached for her glass. Didn't look at me. That hurt more than anything else. I let it go. Again. Until Madison started talking about her job. She worked in strategy, she said, at a consulting firm downtown. She dropped buzzwords like they were currency. Noah looked impressed. Margaret leaned in. Charles nodded approvingly. I listened quietly. And then, without really planning to, I reached for my phone. Not out of anger. Out of clarity. I searched. Checked. Verified. Something didn't add up. And as Madison kept talking, boasting now, I realized something important. She didn't know who she was talking to. I set my phone down. Madison, I said calmly, how long have you been at your firm? Almost a year, she replied confidently. And your role? She hesitated, just a fraction. I manage accounts. Interesting. Because according to what I was seeing. No, I didn't say anything yet. Not then. But the room had shifted. The balance had changed. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel small. I felt ready. The room didn't know it yet, but the power had already shifted. Madison was still talking, still performing, still basking in the attention she thought she deserved. She leaned back in her chair, swirling her wine, clearly enjoying the way everyone listened when she spoke. So we're handling multiple high-profile clients right now, she said casually. I can't really name them, obviously, NDAs and all. Noah nodded like a proud sponsor. That's impressive, Margaret said, so young and already so accomplished. Madison smiled. I've always been ambitious. I folded my hands together under the table. Ambition wasn't the word. Pretending was. I looked around. Charles was relaxed now, confident, the patriarch in his domain. Emily was quiet, her shoulders tense, eyes flicking between me and Madison like she sensed something was wrong but didn't know how to stop it. I thought about all the dinners before this one. All the jokes I swallowed. All the times I stayed silent to keep the peace. Peace, I'd learned, usually meant my discomfort. Not tonight. So Madison, I said calmly, interrupting her mid-sentence, what firm did you say you worked for again? She looked at me, surprised. Northline Strategies, she said smoothly. Downtown. Right, I nodded. Northline. Charles glanced up. You've heard of them. I have, I said. We actually evaluated them last year. Madison stiffened. For what? She asked. For a contract, I replied. My company was looking to outsource some strategic modeling. Noah frowned. You never mentioned that. I didn't think it was relevant, I said, still calm. Madison smiled, but it was tighter now, controlled. Oh well, that makes sense, she said. We get inquiries all the time. Do you? I asked. The table went quiet again. Not uncomfortable quiet. Curious quiet. I picked up my phone, not dramatically, not rushed, just enough to make it clear I wasn't bluffing. You said you manage accounts, I continued. Which ones? Her smile faltered. Like I said, confidentiality. Of course, I said quickly. I understand that completely. I scrolled, paused, then looked back up. It's just interesting, I added, because Northline doesn't list account managers at your level. Noah laughed nervously. Daniel, come on. I'm just asking questions, I said. She was curious about my work earlier, thought it was fair. Madison's cheeks flushed. I don't see how this is appropriate dinner conversation, Margaret said sharply. It wasn't appropriate when I was being mocked either, I replied quietly. Emily finally looked at me. Really looked. Daniel, she whispered. But it was too late. Madison straightened in her chair. I don't know what point you're trying to make, but… I'm not trying to embarrass you, I said. I'm trying to understand. I turned my phone so only the table could see. Northline's public directory lists you as a junior operations coordinator. Silence. The kind that presses against your ears. That's outdated, Madison said quickly. I checked the internal org chart, I replied. Same title. Noah stood up halfway. That's enough. Sit down, Charles said sharply to Noah. He turned to me. Daniel, he said slowly, what exactly are you doing? I met his eyes. The same thing Madison's been doing all night, I said, clarifying status. Madison laughed suddenly, high and brittle. This is ridiculous, she said. Titles don't matter, everyone contributes. I agree, I said, which is why it was strange hearing my work minimized earlier. She opened her mouth, closed it, then tried again. I never mocked you. I looked around the table. At Emily. At Charles. At Margaret. At what point, I asked, did any of you think to stop her? No one answered. Emily's eyes filled with tears. That hurt more than anything Madison had said. You know what's ironic, I continued, voice steady. You all think I'm sensitive, defensive, that I overreact. I tapped my phone once. My firm did $11.6 million in revenue last year. Charles blinked. Noah stared. Margaret stiffened. We employ 52 people across 3 states. Our largest client signed a 5-year deal worth more than any single property your firm sold this year. Charles' face darkened. Madison stared at the table. I didn't bring that up earlier, I added, because I didn't think it mattered. I looked directly at Madison. But you made it matter. That's not fair, Emily said softly. I turned to her. What's not fair, I asked gently, is sitting here while I'm treated like a joke. She looked away. That answer told me everything. Madison stood abruptly. This is humiliating, she snapped. You're attacking me because you feel insecure. I smiled sadly. No, I said, I'm responding because I finally stopped accepting it. Charles slammed his hand on the table. That's enough, he said. You're a guest in my home. So was she, I replied, and she insulted me. You provoked this, Margaret said coldly. No, I said, I revealed it. I stood up. My hands weren't shaking. My voice wasn't raised. But something inside me had settled. Emily, I said, I need you to answer one question. She looked up, terrified. Why didn't you say anything? Her lips trembled. I didn't want to make things worse. They were already worse, I said quietly. Madison grabbed her purse. I don't need this, she muttered. Noah followed her, whispering angrily. The door slammed. The room felt hollow. You embarrassed this family, Charles said. No, I replied, you let it happen. Margaret stood, you should leave. I nodded. I was already planning to. I looked at Emily one last time. I needed you tonight, I said. You weren't there. She broke. I didn't know what to do, she cried. I swallowed. Neither did I said, until now. I walked out. Didn't look back. That night my phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. This is Madison. I lost my job. They found out I was exaggerating my role. I hope you're happy. I stared at the screen. Then typed back. You lost your job because you lied, not because I told the truth. I put the phone down. And for the first time in years, I slept without weight on my chest. Emily came home just after midnight. I heard the door before I saw her, slow, careful, like she wasn't sure she was welcome. I was sitting on the couch, lights off, city glow spilling through the windows. I hadn't moved since I walked in hours earlier. I wasn't angry anymore. Anger burns fast. What I felt now was quieter and heavier. She stood near the doorway for a long time. I didn't know where else to go, she said finally. I nodded, this is still your home. She sat across from me, arms wrapped around herself. They're furious, she said. My parents, Noah, everyone. I looked at her. Are they furious about what she said to me, or that I didn't stay quiet? Emily flinched. She lost her job, she said softly. I know, I replied. She texted me. Emily looked up. You could have let it go. Something in my chest cracked. I've been letting it go for 9 years, I said. Tonight was just the first time I didn't. Silence stretched between us. I didn't mean to hurt you, she whispered. I know, I said, but you still did. The next few weeks felt unreal. Emily moved back to her parents' house, temporarily. That word carried a lot of weight, but we both avoided talking about it. Her family refused to speak to me. No calls, no messages. Not even polite hostility. Just erasure. And for the first time, I stopped trying to fix it. 3 weeks later, the papers arrived. Divorce. Emily wanted half the apartment, half the assets, a share of the business. It wasn't malicious. It was expected. I didn't fight her on the apartment. I'd never loved it anyway. It had always felt like a compromised space, her taste, her location, her comfort. But the business, that was different. I built it. I bled for it. And I wasn't going to apologize for that. The legal process was exhausting. Her father tried to intimidate me through lawyers and connections. He made comments about how difficult this could become. I didn't respond. I just let my attorneys speak. Documentation matters. Facts matter. And when the dust settled, the judge agreed Emily had no claim to the company. She left with far less than she expected. I left with something far more valuable. Bees. Noah and Madison broke up within 2 weeks. Once her job title wasn't impressive anymore, neither was she. Funny how that works. I heard she moved back in with her parents, took another entry-level position. This time she didn't exaggerate. Good. Sometimes growth requires humiliation. 6 months after the divorce finalized, I was having dinner downtown with a potential investor. Nice place, quiet, professional. Halfway through the meal, I noticed a familiar face 2 tables away. Charles, Margaret. They hadn't seen me yet. They looked older, smaller, less certain. Then Charles noticed who I was sitting with. His posture changed instantly, because he recognized the man across from me. A seasoned executive, quiet confidence, no need to announce status. Someone Charles respected. I watched the realization hit him. Not that I was doing well, but that I'd always been someone worth respecting. He didn't come over, didn't say a word, just sat there staring into his glass. I paid my bill, stood, and walked past their table. "Good evening," I said politely. Margaret didn't look up. Charles nodded stiffly. That was enough. The company grew fast after that. New contracts, new cities, new talent. Without the weight of constant disrespect in my life, everything felt easier, clearer. I bought a house the following year. Not to prove anything, just because I wanted a place that felt like mine. My parents came to visit not long after. My dad stood on the back porch, hands in his pockets, staring at the view. "You did good," he said. "Because of you," I replied. He smiled. "No, because you finally stopped letting people tell you who you are." About a year later, I ran into Madison at a networking event. She looked different, quieter, more real. She hesitated when she saw me, then walked over. "I owe you an apology," she said. I nodded. "You do." She didn't make excuses, didn't justify, just apologized. I accepted it. Then I walked away. Because forgiveness doesn't require reconnection. I heard Emily remarried. I hope she's happy. I really do. But I also hope she learned something. That silence is a choice. That love means protection. And that loyalty isn't passive. Looking back now, that dinner changed everything. It cost me a marriage, but it gave me my self-respect. And once you reclaim that, nothing else compares. Here's the truth no one tells you. Sometimes the table you're desperate to belong at is the one you need to walk away from. Sometimes the people who look down on you are terrified of what happens when you finally stand up. And sometimes the moment you stop shrinking is the moment your life actually begins. That night I didn't prove I was better than anyone. I proved I was done accepting less than I deserved. And that was enough.